From the Oklahoman newsroom, this is a Varsity Update. I'm Jenny Carlson here with high school sports writer Jacob Unruh. Jacob, it's week 4, and that means it's time for district play. Across the board, high school teams getting going on these games that really count. We've had some big ones in the first, 4 weeks was 0 week,
Yeah.
I guess, but now we're in week 4. You know, it doesn't get any worse, that's for sure. Lots of big games, but now the stakes. And we start at the top with a huge 6A1 matchup. Jinx, Broken Arrow, 1 and 2. I mean, in the first week of district play, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's rare to say that you can go into district play in week 4 and say district titles might be won this week.
Yeah.
But that's been the case in the top two divisions. 6A1, the top 2 districts there, with Jinx and Broken Arrow playing each other this week. Union and Owasso play each other in a rematch of last year's title game. Yeah. Those teams have won the district every year, and so it's hard to say that this isn't for a district title at this point. But when you look at Jinx and Broken Arrow, it's 2 powerhouses at this point. Broken Arrow has been incredibly dominant on both sides of the ball. Jinx has started to look like the old Jinx. They didn't really get too far away from it the last few years, but they look more like the old Jinx than they have in the past. Big physical offensive line, a good quarterback, a good defense. That game's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, your top 3 games are all 6A related games. Obviously, some different divisions there, but that Owasso Union is a good quarterback matchup, but some good quarterbacks also in your number 3 game between Lawton and Midwest City, a 6A2 matchup there. Some really good players that are in these first few games.
Yeah, you know, in that Lawton Midwest City game, that game always comes down to a field goal, a last minute touchdown. I think last year Miles Davis had a punt return touchdown to make that game really tight in the last minute or so. You know, Preston Colbert's been a little banged up for Midwest City. I don't think he played a couple weeks ago. They're coming off a bye week. If he's healthy, that game turns into a really huge matchup, especially considering next week Midwest City plays Stillwater, who I recently moved up to number 1 in our 6A2 poll, and that's might be an even bigger game next week.
We'll see where it lands on your top 10 next week. Don't give anything away.
There's a lot
yet.
of good games next week. I was already kind of glancing ahead. There's a lot of good games next week.
You're not giving anything away. Just hold it back. There's obviously some, you mentioned the first week of district play potentially deciding district champs. Well, if you look down some other lower class games in your top 10, your number 5 game involves Thomas and Hooker, Class A battle there. That's a 1 and 2 matchup. Again, a potential district decider.
Yeah, and when you look at their district and how they shape up, they're clearly the 2 best teams. And so it's hard to predict it necessarily in Class A because anything I think can happen. But you look at it and go, well, on paper, they're the 2 best teams, and they're playing this point in the season, and they're playing for the top spot essentially, and they're playing for what could later become that district title.
As you look around at these games, a lot of good East Side games, obviously. But for people on the West Side, is there a game you would say, hey, if you can go check this out, either for the pageantry, the individuals? Who would you point people toward? You know,
I think you've got to go to Blanchard at Bethany. It's the annual Children's Center Bowl. They've raised thousands of dollars to help the Children's Center in Bethany. This year it's the first time it's a district game, and it's against Blanchard, one of the best teams in 4A, a semifinalist last year, and now you got Bethany, who's trying to get to that point, who's made some deep playoff runs himself. Both top 10 teams, both really talented. Jamie Nance at Blanchard is a Nebraska committed receiver, and Sam Brandt's a really good quarterback at Bethany. I think you've got a lot of elements there that are worth going to check out.
All right, some great games. Be sure to get out and see one as the high school district play cranks up here in week 4. And be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.